It had started with the shooting of a homeless man by police in downtown Los Angeles, or that's the way Chloe would retell it to anybody who asked her. For 5 days she had hidden in her mother's house, creeping from room to room as if she was a mouse, afraid to make even the smallest sound. On the first day she had returned home early from university after shopping for groceries, which later she would be greatly thankful for. That evening she had heard sirens, something that was a common sound on the streets of Los Angeles, but there were far more than usual. When she switched on the television, there were reports of mobs of people attacking each other. To her, the accounts made no sense. Later she would fall asleep only to be woken up by the sound of thunder. When she walked out onto her lawn around midnight, she realized it was not the sound of thunder at all, but the distant cracks of explosions. It was cold that evening and dew had already set on the ground. For more than an hour she stood on the street looking at the sky as helicopters flew overhead and what sounded more like a war zone than a street in Pasadena. And it wasn't just her, hundreds of people could be seen walking in and out of their houses, some looking skyward. A voice called out to her, and she turned to see her neighbor Mrs. Williams's face at the open window. She crossed the lawn and looked at her in the half-light. The woman was in her 70s, although Chloe wasn't sure of her exact age. For a woman of her age, though, she looked 20 years younger, and her health matched the age of a woman much younger as well. Once a month Chloe would mow her lawn and the old woman would give her a glass of lemonade, a box of homemade biscuits, and $20. A thick woolen coat protected her from the winter cold. "Stop standing there," the old woman said with a look of fright on her face. "Get inside and lock your doors." "What's going on?" Chloe asked. Mrs. Williams's eyes rose to the sky. "There are riots in East LA." Chloe's head turned when she heard a distant explosion. "Who's rioting?" The sky lit up as if it was on fire. The woman was now leaning half out her window. "I heard the police shot a homeless man after he bit one of them. Must have been on drugs. Now the whole city has gone crazy." Chloe thought for a moment, then her face morphed into a look of disbelief. "They shot a homeless man for biting a cop." The old lady's head seemed to bob in the darkness as if it were seaweed on an ocean. "That's what the news said around midday." Midday, thought Chloe. She was in a lecture on European medieval history. "Chloe," the old woman said as if she was a young child, "you need to get inside and lock your doors. There's looting going on, and fill up every bottle you have with water. Do you have a flashlight? If you don't, I can give you some candles, and I don't know if you have a gun, but if you do, keep it with you tonight, loaded." The night had a chill to it, and after another explosion, Chloe shivered uncontrollably, shaking like a leaf for a moment. The woman's words caused a nervousness inside her that she hadn't felt before. "Get inside, dear, before you catch your death," the old woman cried once more. Chloe needed no more encouragement. "Keep your lights out and your curtains closed," were the last words Chloe heard from Mrs. Williams as she dashed back to her house with the door slamming behind her. The door was double-bolted, and Chloe checked every window diligently to make sure they were locked as well. She closed every curtain, and while she didn't own a gun and had never even fired one, she took a butcher's knife from the kitchen. Chloe's mind remembered things as if they were written on paper, and that paper formed chapters, and the chapters became a book. The words of Mrs. Williams were written into that book, and Chloe followed the old lady's instructions as if they were a recipe. She filled every pot, every glass, every mug, every bottle. She even filled buckets from the garage with water. The only candles she had were ornamental glass ones, but they would still burn. A torch was one thing she did have, and batteries as well, thanks to her many camping trips with her uncle. Afterward, she slumped down on the couch with a hot cup of coffee. The sounds of violence filled the night. Not an hour went by when Chloe didn't hear gunfire and more. There were times when the whole city sounded as if it was exploding. When she did sleep, it wasn't for more than a few minutes. Roomy eyes woke to see thick clouds and heavy rain. And it was cold, cold enough that Chloe thought it might snow, and in the city of Los Angeles, that was almost as strange as the riots themselves. When Chloe tried to make a phone call, she found the phone dead. "Dead," she uttered, throwing her mobile down. When she switched on the television to watch the news, there was only a blank screen. Chloe's heart froze in her chest and her eyes flooded with tears. She had never felt so alone. Her mother was gone, Argentina, and the only family she had left in LA was her uncle. A knock at the door and Chloe wiped her eyes. When she opened it, Mrs. Williams and her daughter stood there. "We're leaving," Mrs. Williams said. "We have room for you, come with us." "Leaving," Chloe repeated. She walked out of her house. The woman's daughter's husband was loading an SUV next door. "What's happening?" Chloe said. The daughter looked at her. Angela was about 15 years older than Chloe. "We're not sure, we're just leaving till things calm down. There's National Guard on the streets now." Chloe looked at her. "I'm not leaving, this is my home." Mrs. Williams took Chloe by the hand. "And it still will be when you come back, a few days." Chloe looked at her with kind eyes. "It's very kind of you, but I can't leave." "We need to leave now," a desperate voice cried out loudly. The SUV was loaded and the man was waving at them furiously. Mrs. Williams let her hand go, and when she did, Chloe found a key in it. "That is the key to my house," the old lady said. "It's well stocked with food and medicine, take whatever you need. Protect yourself, and if you have to leave, head south." Then the old lady and her daughter began to walk off. Chloe wanted to say something, but it was as if her mind had left her body. The way the old lady was talking, they were never going to see each other again. She watched as the vehicle sped off down the street. Chloe threw her university books out of her bag in a heap on the floor and left the house. The old lady had struck a fear in her mind, but if things got worse, she wanted to be prepared. The local farmer's market was a short walk from her house. As she walked, she noticed many vehicles leaving the city, all heading south. Gunfire in the distance made her stop more than once. How did the old lady know such things? What she saw stopped her in her tracks. The farmer's market, a collection of small shops, was deserted. As Chloe left, she noticed a reporter standing in front of a camera in the parking lot. He was speaking loudly to be heard above the gunfire. The man did not mention riots, murders, or deaths, but strangely people staggering around, and likened them to puppets. Puppets, thought Chloe, marionettes in French. When Chloe returned home, she went to the old lady's house and scavenged her food. She was kind enough to leave a note with what food she had taken, so she could repay the old lady back when the riots were over. Night scared her the most. The darkness was a monster in itself. That evening she barricaded up both doors to her house. Every so often she would be woken by gunfire, but she would convince herself it was miles away, and there was nothing to worry about. Chloe had taken the old lady's advice and kept the lights off, lighting a candle at night so she didn't feel so alone. In the morning there was less gunfire, and a feeling things were getting back to normal. That was until she turned on the lights, and bulbs hung dark in their sockets. Now there was no electricity. In the 21 years Chloe had been alive, not once had she suffered without power. Without electricity, she could not cook any food until she remembered the camping equipment in her garage. On icy oil-stained concrete beside her mother's old Honda, water heated above a portable gas cooker. The old lady had been right about filling the buckets. Now when she opened the taps, they coughed a little like a small child and fell silent. It was mid-morning before she ate pasta and used the leftover water to make coffee. With a cup, Chloe even drained the water out of the tank in the bathroom. Night was her worst fear, so she decided to try and sleep during the day. At first her eyes were open as if pinned, but gradually she was able to forget about the sound of gunfire and drift off to another world. When she woke, it was dark, and she fumbled around to get a candle lit. Chloe passed the evening with one eye peering through a slit in the curtains in her lounge and a knife in her hand. The night was cold, and often she would rub her hands together in a futile attempt to keep warm. The next morning Chloe had no appetite for food. She gathered up her bag, pulled the chairs away from the front door, and stepped out into the world. A north wind blew, icy and horrid, and shadowy black clouds drifted across the sky. A soft rain sliced through the air, striking her face. Chloe buttoned up her jacket and shoved her hands into her pockets. For 2 blocks she walked, not seeing another living soul, not even a vehicle moving. Where was everybody, she thought. They can't have all left. Block after block, house after house, street after street was deserted. And if they hadn't left, where were all the bodies? Only the distant rumble of weapons fire meant there was any life in the city at all. When she reached the farmer's market again, she stopped in the parking lot. Not a shop was open, and many had been broken into and looted. She remembered the words of the reporter she had seen the day before. Puppets he had mentioned. But what would make humans act like puppets?